Here will be Braddock from the University of Manchester. This is a joint paper also from the National Center for Radio Astrophysics at the Tata Institute.
Thank you for the introduction. So this presentation will talk about SKA's aim to build a telescope array in Australia and South Africa. This will require a lot of systems to be put in place, one of which is a synchronization and timing system. What I'm going to talk about today is the monitor and control software for this particular system. This is what we internally refer to as the SAT-LMC. I'm going to primarily focus on the approach we've taken to the design of the tools that we used. Already done that one. So just to reiterate, it's going to talk about the communication models, cross-cultural sensitivity and leadership principles that we've adopted. So the methodology. So SAT-LMC is a very simple and informal architecture. It's a two-tier hierarchy allowing two-way communication, so upwards to a telescope manager and downwards to the synchronization and timing system elements. As with any software project, it's evolved over time. So where we started 4 years ago was very different to where we are today. So we've aimed to try and capture the progression and evolution of the software by releasing what we call release packs. Every 6 to 9 months, we take a snapshot of the artifacts that we've been working on, whether it's design documentation, interface documentation, or prototype reports, and effectively put them into a zip file and upload them onto a central repository within our consortium. The main purpose of this is to effectively, like I say, give a snapshot of the progression, but also keep the rest of the members of the consortium informed as to where we are and where we're hoping to get to. Now, an area I'm not too familiar with, and my colleagues more familiar with this, is SAT-LMC follows the Open Group Architecture Framework, more commonly known as TOGAF. We've only concentrated on one side of the model, and that constitutes the design, planning, implementation, and governing. This slide just gives you a very brief overview of the design of SAT-LMC. So as you can see, it's a very simple block we have here. Note the use of Tango. So this is hopefully going to harmonise us with the other LMC people across the telescope. So a bit more about the activities we've been going through over the past few years. Last year we spent the best part of it working on prototyping work. So this involved various different case studies, creation of code snippets to prove concepts. This work was mainly done in-house in our various different institutes. There was a small amount of field testing, but it wasn't really deemed necessary to do a vast amount. Now, what was pivotal to allow us to do this prototyping work for as long as we did was interfacing. More particularly, documentation of the interfaces, both internal to our work package and external to other consortia. So we chose to capture our interfacing information on spreadsheets. So each row of the spreadsheet constitutes a functional interface. So each functional interface had to have a great deal of information and detail associated with it. So going to great detail such as communication protocol, so trawling manuals in a lot of cases, establishing acquisition rates, whether it's a polling rate or a push-pull mechanism, and so on and so forth. So a great deal of detail was needed, but this was established very early on and allowed us to make very good progress. Having said that, as a lot of our colleagues in the SKA community will know, things change quite often and we have to be adaptable to that. From day one, some information just wouldn't be available for many months, if not years. So allow us to keep on progressing. We created, well, the consortium which I work in created what we refer to as the Master Data Assumptions List, or MDAL. So when a piece of information just wasn't known, we made an educated guess or an educated assumption as to what we think will most likely be the case, and we recorded it formally. Once this formal point was made, we then progressed our designs on that assumption up until the point where it was either formally stated as being a fact or the assumption had changed. A point to note is that this wasn't just local to our work group, this was consortium-wide, so all of the work groups within our consortium were aware of our way of thinking. And one other aspect, moving on to the extensibility and flexibility side of things, a lot of work's been spent trying to target the architecture of the SAT-LMC in order to make it as effective as possible, but at the same time put it at a level of abstraction such that we didn't have to change it every other day when new information came about or there's a sudden change in direction. So really this statement at the bottom is just with regards to that. We created a level of abstraction, so it doesn't mean the architecture's very woolly, it just means that we're safeguarding ourselves. So one of the final points on the software design is I'm just going to touch on the project management side of things. So when I talk about this, it's more with regards to the local management of ourselves, so our team of 4. There was no overall management, although there was delegated management within the team. We took the approach of giving ownership to artifacts, so allowing different people to own different things like design documentation, interface documentation, test documentation, and so on. We tried to avoid, or we did avoid, the use of micromanagement within the team. We're all professionals within our fields. We all know what work needs to be done. There's no need to spoon-feed each other to get the work done. And we also adopted a means of monitoring progress with regards to reporting back to the consortium, of not following the tick box principle of done, not done, but rather a progression through progress in terms of a percentage mark. And one other point that just needs briefly talking about is risk management. Obviously risks appear as and when. When we see something on the horizon, we formally record it in a risk register. Things that we record are effectively what we think the risk is, what impact on cost and schedule we think it to have, but most importantly, how we propose we'll mitigate against it. So moving swiftly on to the tools that we've used in our work. I want to skip this wordy slide and move on to the picture one instead. So this just gives you a very brief overview of the different tools that we used. You'll see that we have the obligatory Microsoft Office tools here. And you'll see that we've got these diagramming tools here. So on my last slide, I said free versus paid for. You get what you pay for, but sometimes free stuff's good enough. All the diagramming that we've done for our artifacts for submission have been done with this free tool called Dia. It takes some getting used to, but it's very effective. Would certainly highly recommend it. With regards to the prototyping work, you'll see some of these buzzwords here. So we have Tango. We chose to use the Python variants, again, to keep us in line with our other LMC colleagues in the community. And we've also done some investigation into containerization using Docker. We were due to submit a paper on this, but unfortunately, we ran out of time. So moving swiftly on to our team, we are very much a globally distributed team, which the next slide will show. We chose Skype as our means of communication for a number of years. It was very effective, allowed us to do screen sharing, audio quality was very good. But within our consortium over the past few months, we've acquired a license for using Zoom. It seems to be very much like Skype, but just a little bit more refined. Again, we'd highly recommend using this for any type of multi-team collaborations. We have used WebEx and telephone more conventional ways, but again, many of you will know that'll get very expensive very quickly. So again, this is just a little picture of our distribution of people and communication. So this slide here shows how just distributed we are. So there's myself and a colleague at STFC based up here in the UK, and we have a colleague down here in South Africa, and we're orchestrated by a team here in NCRA in Pune, India. And these are the particular institutes that constitute the SAT-LMC team. We try and meet at least once a year, budget dependent. So we're very fortunate in that although we're globally distributed, we have hours of crossover during our working day. Some other SKA colleagues aren't this fortunate, but we are. So there's a good scope for talking in real time. We spend up to about 5 hours a week talking face-to-face, talking using the methods I described earlier. This really goes back to what I was saying before about management. Key to our success really has been the ownership of artifacts. We have to resign ourselves to the fact that everyone can't do everything and everyone can't contribute to everything. There has to be an element of delegation amongst ourselves. But in order for us to all keep to the same picture, we do internal reviews, so that keeps us all aligned and focused on what's what. So in conclusion, based on our time in the past 4 years working together, this has worked well for us, what I've very briefly described to you. It's by no means a formal structured way of collaborating. It's no agile framework, but for the team that we have, it's worked well. Common ground goes a long way. Outside of work, we do have lots of things in common, which helps us bond as a team. And I can't put enough emphasis on the use of computerized tools. This has helped us an awful lot. If we tried to do this 10, 20 years ago, I don't think we would have been successful. And that's all I have to say, so thank you very much.
Yes, questions? I have one.
Yeah.
You mentioned the number of institutes and countries involved, but how many people in total are involved in this project?
Do you mean in the team that I specifically talked about, the SAT-LMC team? There were 4 members throughout the 4 years. We originally started with 2 members in the first 2 years, and then as the work grew and commenced, we brought further contributors in. But in answer to your question, 4 people.
Yeah.
And they were spread over 4 academic establishments. So there's University of Manchester in the UK, STFC in the UK, NCRA in India.
So will you do a face-to-face meeting? How many people are participating?
From our team, normally...
Yeah. No, in total.
Oh, in total from the group. So when we meet face-to-face, it's normally with collaborators like our colleagues here. So there's normally about 20 to 30 people, and we talk on a subject, normally about monitoring control.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.